Do you want to know the difference between a hero's civil war and a supervillain civil war? Well, everybody dies in one. I'd also like to remind you guys that Wesley is a bad guy. Every single character in this book are bad people. So don't feel bad and don't idolize them. They are not normal. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I really appreciate it, and I like interacting with all of you. I really do. Okay, so we ended the last video with the beginning of the supervillain civil war, and we get a brief history on the history of supervillains. We learned that the first supervillains were a group of guys dressed naked because they knew other straight men wouldn't want to put hands on them because they were naked. We learned it was the fox telling David this brief history, but David's mind was somewhere else, and she could tell. So she continued on, explaining how before the world is like a circus, people in costume, supervillains and superheroes all looking like freaking geeks and nerds. But she noticed again that David's mind wasn't here, so she asked, "What happened to you?" And he let her know that yesterday he visited a police station. And she honestly found this funny because police knew better than to arrest a member of the fraternity, but he made it clear he went there on his own. Wielding two guns, he went there to hunt, and he did, taking out every single police officer and prisoner for the fun of it. Like I said, Wesley is a bad guy. I mean, he only left one person alive, and when it was time to pull the trigger, he couldn't because he knew he was being a bad person. It's different being a bad guy, being a supervillain, but being a bad person, walking into this place and just messing up people's lives and the lives of their family was really uncalled for. He honestly cried at the scene. He told all of this to Fox because he was vulnerable, and Fox let him know that she wasn't training him to be the world's biggest psychopath. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel like you're doing the worst thing. But your father just wanted to give you a choice. He didn't want you to be a loser. He didn't want you to live a pathetic life without choice. He wanted you to be able to do whatever the hell you wanted to do, even if that was a bad thing. So Wesley asked her the simple question that's been on his mind. Did you kill my father? And she said, no, I could kill anyone on earth, but not your father. Back with the other criminals, they were having fun, especially with the professor's bodyguard. They beat his ass. And this is weird because he was supposed to have the powers of Superman. This is when we find out that the sucker had taken the power for 24 hours, making this big oaf that was on the spectrum vulnerable. Professor Rectum called in because they had trouble dealing with one of the heroes who had powers. So he sent Sucker, and the Sucker did his thing. Using the powers of the professor's bodyguard, he blitzed this freaking imp like freaking Flash. He tore his body up. And back with the super clone, we see him having a conversation with the guy that clearly doesn't want to do this, but his member is telling him to do so, so he does it. I mean, that's his gimmick. He has two minds, one in his brain and one in his private part. And lastly, we see the professor's best friend, Toymaker. He knew they were coming for him, but he wasn't moving. He was ready for death because he knew he was a bad guy. He just asked for them to leave his face intact so his family has something to remember him by. But that was not an option because before coming here, Dick took care of his family and took photos. I mean, you know what comes next. He went ballistic, telling all his toys to kill everybody. And trust me, they are capable, but this was supervillain, so yeah. But with Wesley, he has just discovered now that he's a wanted man, which shouldn't be possible because the fraternity erases every trace. So if this is out of the news, it means he has been betrayed by the fraternity. And turning behind him, he sees he is facing 6 guns, and all of them had apparently heard of the star boy called the Killer because they were afraid, saying, please drop down the bottle. We know you could kill us with that. It was so funny because Wesley was a loser a few months ago, but now he's the most feared man on planet Earth. We see Shithead telling Wesley to drop his gun, but the fox came from the shadow, wielding a blaster, ready to take everyone out. Shithead laughed because he knew there were 6 guns, but suddenly the phone rang, giving Wesley a split second, and a split second is all he needs, because as soon as he grabbed that blaster, he took everybody out. I mean everybody, headshots, clean. Shithead was all that was left, and he was afraid. Back with Professor Rectum though, he stayed to finish the job, and he finished the job. But Wesley honestly wasn't bothered. He just wanted to know who killed his father. And Shithead couldn't tell him, blaming the professor, but nah, they knew he was lying. So David got the Kleenex and bleached his ass. After Professor Rectum was done, he walked out and he saw witnesses taking all of them out but their child, hoping one day the child learns martial arts and comes to get revenge. He's a deviant, and now he has the world all to himself, and he was going to play. We see now that the world had turned to end of days, and someone was watching from above. Wesley was coming for blood, and he was going to have it. We see Professor Rectum calling the other members of the Five just to show off the corpse of the professor, which he was freaking eating live. He let them know in the change of status quo. He even unleashed the professor's deviant machine that was built to eat human flesh, unleashing a bunch of innocents into the water and watching the robot eat them alive. He made a promise that he was going to mess the world up, and now he was inviting the Five to do something about it. Because this was what he wanted. His realest desire was violence, war, 100%. But he wasn't going to get his dream because all of a sudden we start hearing bang, bang, supervillains dropping like flies, especially the ones that cause chaos. Bang, bang. They didn't care. They were taking everyone out. They knew the sucker was going to be a problem because he had the super strength and flight of Superman. But that was for only 24 hours. And right now his hours were up. So Wesley checked his watch and watched him fall to his death. And when all the scrubs were done with, it was time to go for the boss, commandeering a whole ass truck. Wesley and the Fox unleashed a freaking barrage of bullets, taking everyone out and going back into the base. The other villains got prepared, but they were not ready for Wesley. Wesley was the killer now. He was the killer for a reason. He was a savant with his blasters. Blam, blam, everyone was taken out in a split second. He was merciless, and he was beautiful. Stepping into the main courtyard, he saw they were waiting for him. Every single supervillain that turned their back on him were all assembled in one place. You would expect Wesley to be afraid, right? Nah, he wasn't afraid. He was thinking about his mama. Just realizing now that his mother died, thinking he was gay. He was pissed off. I mean, he went instant kill mode. The Fox got out of the way, and he went ballistic. He took every single person out. I mean, specifically because of his rage. I mean, he's no Superman, so he got hit, but his suit was bulletproof. And so, like a savant with his freaking blasters, he took everybody out spectacularly, flipping, kicking, even when the Fox looked back, because she took her eyes off him for like a second. When she looked back, everyone was dead. She was amazed. Wesley stood in a puddle of blood that wasn't his own. Looking at Professor Rectum, he gave him the last shot. But Wesley, he wasn't going to die because of this prick. Pulling out his dagger, he just flicked the bullet back directly into the professor's throat. It was over. The Fox was proud. The Fox was happy. But Wesley wasn't satisfied. He wanted to know who took his father. And even when the professor Rectum didn't want to answer, he just finished him off. But Wesley was going to get his answers today, right here, right now. Because in the corner, someone was clapping. Wielding his dagger, Wesley got in action position, only to see the person clapping and dropped it. What? What the fuck? How is this possible? Standing before him was his father. They told me you were dead, but his father just smiled because he was actually very proud at this moment. He was proud of what his son has become. Looking at his boy, he knew right now he had to give him an explanation, and he promised he would. But this is where we leave off. Please like and subscribe and share my YouTube videos. I would really appreciate it.